Hello everyone. Today we're going to be looking at the ancient Middle East civilizations. These civilizations are hugely important because what you're going to know about them is that they all built their civilizations on top of the ones that fell before them. So last time we looked at Sumer, Akkadian, and Babylon, and what you're going to see is that all of those civilizations, even after they fell, had a huge impact on the ones that followed them. The first one we're going to look at today is the Hittites. The Hittites are one of the most powerful of these groups that followed Sumer, Akkad, and Babylon. And the reason for that is because they helped develop one of the most important inventions of its time. They are most known for creating what's known as iron weapons. Iron weapons are what made them one of the most powerful groups in the world. But what I want you guys to notice more importantly than that is the fact that they assimilated a lot of their culture from Sumer. After Sumer fell, their foundation did not disappear. So all the groups that took place after them used Sumerian culture, Sumerian religion, Sumerian ideas, and adapted them to their own. These guys are no different. Alright, something else they adapt from Sumer is religion. All religions in this area were polytheistic, with the exception of one or two, but predominantly polytheistic, and the other part that makes them all similar is that they adopted gods from both Sumer and Babylon, which means they had thousands of gods. After the Hittites, we look at the Assyrians. The Assyrians are a hugely important empire because they are what's known as the first true empire in world history. Although there were other empires, the thing that makes this the most true empire is for the first time in history, a foreign group controlled a land outside of the Middle East. If you can look to the left of the map, you see where this area from Tanis, Memphis, and Thebes, that's Egypt. This is the first foreign empire to ever control this land, making it the first true empire in world history. They also, like the Hittites before them, they adapt to the groups that just fall. The Hittites fell, but their iron weapons did not disappear. So the Assyrians took these iron weapons and they adapted them, making them the most powerful army in the world. And hopefully you guys are going to see a pattern, because once an empire falls, the one that takes place after uses all of the achievements of the one prior, making them powerful for at least a time. The other thing that makes them so important is not only were they great in battle by the use of cavalry and chariots, they also developed latitude and longitude. Now, although it wasn't as accurate as it will be much later on, you're going to see that this early discovery of latitude and longitude made it easy for early sailors to dominate the Mediterranean Sea. They are also greatly known for spreading cultural diffusion. Cultural diffusion, again, you're going to see it stems from Sumer, Akkad, it's going to stem from Babylon, the Hittites, the Assyrians, and all the other groups we're going to look at today. They all adapt from what came before them. Now, what you're going to see here is that they also are polytheistic. But one of the things you're going to have to notice from these images is that not only did they adapt their religion from the Sumerians, but there are some very similar images found in Egyptian culture. If you look at the image on the left and the two images on the right, you could see that they're made from both man and animal, which has striking similarity to Egypt. After the Assyrians, we get to the Chaldeans. Now, the Chaldeans we looked at last time. The Chaldeans were known as the Neo-Babylonians, led by a man named Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar is most known, again, for creating the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. But what he's also known for is reestablishing the Babylon Empire, or the Babylonian Empire. And the reason that this is important is because, as always, they built on what was left before them. And they were able to literally build the polytheistic religion even stronger. They made the religions even stronger. They made the gods even stronger. And they left a lasting foundation. Because this empire, although it did not last 100 years, the empires that follow it will adapt, they will assimilate, and they will blend aspects of the culture that they liked. Leading us to the Persians. The Persians are one of the greatest empires ever known. Now, before we talk about some great empires, the largest empire in world history was the Mongols. Well, the Mongols, they overtook the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire overtook the Greek or Alexander's empire, and he overtook the Persian Empire. So when we talk about the great empires in world history, everyone overlooks the Persians. The Persians, if you look at this map, created one of the largest empires ever known. You have to understand that there was a lot of the world that was unknown at this time. So for an empire to expand beyond its original territory, that was one amazing attribute, or one amazing skill. But if you look at this map here, they expand as far east as India, and as far west as Eastern Europe and into Egypt. This was a massive empire, which is what you guys can notice from these red lines here on this map. These red lines are the Royal Highway, and it just shows you that they built roads to connect their empire. It was an enormous undertaking, and it's one of the things that still makes them one of the most important empires in world history. This network of roads, again, was used for the first postal system in world history. But because of the size of the empire was just too large to govern. The Persians used this system known as satraps. They are governors who literally take parts of the empire, and they all answer to the king. It made the governing of this empire easy, and it put the power in the hands of the few that the king trusted. It was a good way for him to monitor his empire, see what's going on in different areas in different times, and keep control over his subjects. Eventually, this empire would fall to Alexander the Great, probably one of the greatest conquerors in world history. One of the things that the Persians are known for is creating a religion that prior to their creation did not exist. The Zoroastrianists were created by a famous philosopher known as Zoroaster. Zoroaster, or Zoroastrianism as his religion became known, was the first major monotheistic religion for the Persians. Now, the other major monotheistic religion of the time was Judaism. But for a time, Persia was monotheistic. The religion itself is extremely tolerant. He convinced his king to convert, but if you can notice from this map, only a small amount of the Persian Empire actually fell under the Zoroastrianist faith. It did not last long. Although it is still around today, it is not one of the most popular religions in the world. But it's important to know that there are other kinds of monotheistic religions besides Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. Speaking of Judaism, the Hebrews. The Hebrews have been around for thousands and thousands of years. They are the world's first true monotheistic religion. What you're going to notice about the Jews is that they are one of the few people in history who really did not have a homeland of their own. Although they are from Israel, Israel was taken from them, and they became slaves of Egypt. Eventually, a very famous Hebrew leader, Moses, led them out. But from that moment on, the Jews, or the Hebrews, have been looking for their own homeland. It was not given to them until 1948, when Israel was created and carved out of what was Palestine. The most important document from this period is known as the Ten Commandments. This is their list of moral standards or a moral law code. The reason that this is important is because you're going to start to see people make comparisons. Hammurabi's law code, the Ten Commandments, they're both law codes. Now, even though one is for law and one is for morality and morals, they are both codes of behavior, and that's really why you guys need to know what they are. Codes of behavior, rules of behavior, basically ideas that are meant to control or guide a person's life. All right. This here is a picture of the Exodus out of Egypt, eventually wandering from place to place for a very long time until they finally found a homeland, like I said, in 1948 when Israel was created. Moses parting the Red Sea is one of the most famous stories from the Torah. But what you're going to see about this religion itself is that it's still one of the most popular religions in the world today, and it was the founding religion for Christianity and Islam. The Phoenicians. Phoenicians are another one of these great societies or civilizations that existed in the Middle East. Now, the thing that makes them so important is that they were the greatest sailors of this period. They dominated the Mediterranean Sea long before there was a Rome, long before there was a Greece. They are known as the carriers of civilization because what they were able to do was they set up small little cities all throughout the Mediterranean. They dominated trade and became one of the wealthiest places in the world. But again, like all great civilizations, they rise and they fall. So hopefully you guys can see from this map that they dominated such a large piece of territory. But again, it only lasted for a short while. The other reason that we still talk about them is they created the world's first alphabet. Although it differs from ours, it was the first written alphabet in history. Here is what it looks like here. You could see on this map here, we have to the left, we have the Phoenicians, on the right we have Greek and Roman, and you could see that what ends up happening is that the Phoenician alphabet is the basis for a lot of these other great alphabets and these other great languages. Their religion, again, is polytheistic, no different than a lot of the other areas. But what you're going to start to see is that they also are a little animistic, where they worship spirits and they worship nature. The Lydians. The Lydians are one of the last groups we're going to talk about. The Lydians, very small compared to some of the other groups that we've talked about. Very, very small. They developed in an area that you know today as Turkey. They developed the first metal coins, or portable currency. Basically, these are a picture of their coins. They are the first society to ever allow people to leave with goods with the promise of paying later. So the idea was that you could take money from one place and bring it to the next, and the money would still be worth the same amount. Again, although their civilizations did not last long, they did leave the foundation for this kind of currency that will be used by a lot of the other areas in the world. So that's it for these early civilizations. What I want you guys to really keep in mind